This is the Producer's Journal podcast. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Derek, and in this podcast, you're going to hear my stories and experiences in being a podcast producer, podcast production agency owner, an all-around good guy. In hopes that you learn from my mistakes, wins, and tribulations. If you're looking for a podcast that's going to give you the top 3 reasons to do something, this is not the podcast for you. This is purely me just showing and sharing my experiences over a real period of time. This is presented to you by Shelby Rowe Productions and sponsored by Patreon. Go to my description area, click on my Patreon link, check out the tiers in there. If you find something that you think you like, feel free to subscribe to it. Anything you subscribe to will be beneficial to this podcast and myself and would be greatly appreciated. So let's get started, y'all. So today's a good day. Well, they're all good days, right? But today's the first day I record in my bedroom under my new setup. Now, when this podcast first started, I was doing it all in my bedroom. But at the time, my bedroom was my only office / studio. And I had my normal computer set up. I had my Rodecaster and my SM7B microphone, and all of that stuff went to the studio. I've talked about this in past episodes. So once that happened, I had to think of a new setup for my home. And it's been a little bit of a process. So I have not been recording in here for a while. But funny, I've been set up with everything I needed for a while now, for probably 3-4 weeks. But my schedule's been all over the place. I took a road trip with the band a couple weeks ago, went to New York, and that really threw me off. Dealing with the studio, and just everything has been a little out of order. I try to keep things to a certain schedule, but I also have to be fluid and zig and zag when needed. So all of my recording has still been in the new studio, which, hey, no complaints there. Nice equipment, and it sounds good, and it's my environment. It's my studio. Well, now I'm finally motivated to record on the weekend and using my new setup. So the setup is Allen & Heath hybrid mixer board interface. It's a ZI-8. SM58 and my iPad going into Audacity. Now, the iPad was the final piece, and because of that, and the reason for that is because I want to play music and any sound bites, if ever, in real time. I want to be able to just push a button and something plays. The Rodecaster is amazing because it has 8 buttons, pads that you can push, and you can upload whatever audio bites or music, whatever you want. You can make them unique to whatever you want, and then you just hit them. Bam, you get something going on. So that's what I do in my studio. So I needed to have that same kind of setup, and it was my iPad that was going to do that for me. So the first thing I did was I had to figure out how to get it into my board, and that was a trial by fire, which is kind of what we're going to talk about today. And it was basically, how do I get from my iPad, which is a USB-C port, into stereo into my board? And I won't bury you in the details, but what finally happened was I had to get a USB-C dongle, that's had that stereo female, then a stereo male into it, mini, and then this is the piece I needed to buy. I needed to get a male stereo mini to a split 1/4 inch left and right. Once I figured that out and plugged it in, boom. Because before I was trying a different way and it wasn't stereo. Now I got it in stereo. The next step was to find an app that just gives you hot buttons, like the Rodecaster does. And I found one. It's called Soundboard. It's free. Of course, there's an upgraded version. But now I just have on my screen this little button called Theme Music. Bam, just tap it, and there we go. So now I'm fully prepared to devastate your brain with moderate knowledge. All right, so today I want to talk about trial by fire and taking chances and just jumping into projects or tasks or anything that might make you feel uncomfortable for this purpose of just getting better. There's some things that you just need to do in order to improve. No better example than music. You can be a musician playing. Here's like the order of, as a young musician, as things grow, you start by playing sitting down, and you think, I got this. And then you're like, wait a minute, maybe I should try to play this song standing up. You get a strap, you stand up, and you can't play it. As good, at least. Oh, okay. So then you get better at playing standing up, and then you decide, well, let's join a band. And then bam, that's a whole other experience. Now you're not playing as well because you're not playing to the CD anymore. You're playing to other people that aren't playing it properly. And then the band sounds pretty good, but all right, time to get out of the garage. So you go play a gig, totally eye-opening. You suck. It's a totally different atmosphere. It makes you more nervous. It doesn't sound as good because all you're used to is the sound in your garage or in your bedroom. But you keep gigging and you get better at that, and so on and so forth. And it's just a progression. But none of it grows without jumping into that next phase and just dealing with the stress and anxiety and sometimes embarrassment that it might bring, because it's part of a ultimate goal. Well, now that I have a studio, I'm trying to get local work and have this studio offering services for obviously podcasting, so audio, and then video-based podcasting, but also just video content. And for content, just something that if someone wants to have a decently lit atmosphere, decent quality video, and them just talking into a camera for some content for their social media, then I'm equipped for that to a degree. So I was supposed to have my first paying client on this past Friday as I record this. He had to reschedule. So that was a bummer. I was like, man, as soon as I earn $1 from a local client because of the studio, that will be a good day. I have had the opportunity to produce a podcast here for someone here in Hernando, but we didn't need the studio to do that. Still great, but it could have been done anywhere. Now I have a studio, and this gentleman hopefully will come in Monday now. But what I'm also doing is some pro bono work with my friend Chris Camp. He owns a little business called Motivate with Coach Camp, and he's an upstarting business. He's actually his full-time job is teaching. He's a retired fireman, so he teaches in that field, like EMT students, and he's a big-time coach in sports. And he's a known character in town because his passion and his ability to riff and really motivate people is a force to be reckoned with. And he's a special guy. That's why he's finally starting to build a platform called Motivate with Coach Camp, and ultimately in hopes to make money in it and be a life coach or some form of coach for people willing to pay for that kind of coach. I had him on the Real Hernando podcast, and through a friend referring me to him, and that's how I learned about him. I'm like, he's got to be on the podcast. And ever since then, we've become friends, and we're really trying to help each other out, because my business is, as an LLC, 3 years old. The whole time I've been in the podcast world is over 4 years. So there's a lot of experience. I've built a big business, well, moderate sized business, but hey, a good sized business that pays the bills. But when it comes to being a local brick and mortar business, I'm a screaming little baby, just wanting that bottle. Baby infant business, as is Chris's. So we're trying to help each other out. With that said, I agreed to help him with this content, and I came up with a plan that would make it not as time consuming and needing no money. I don't need to hire my team yet to be able to do what it is I'm doing for him. It's just my time. And I look at this as an opportunity to use him as my guinea pig. A opportunity to try different things, make mistakes, and jump into things that might make me feel uncomfortable, or it might be the first time doing it, with an actual person. Again, I can't produce a video and use it as content for someone if that person doesn't exist. I need a person to try things out with. No better person than my buddy Chris, because he's grateful for it and he's all about it, and he understands that I'm trying to grow too, so he's not expecting amazingly high-end professional content. We're working together. We're learning together. Trial by fire together, because I'm pushing him to come up with more topics and things to talk about in the content we're creating. And one of the big series we're doing is Motivation Monday, where he looks straight into a camera and just talks for 3 to 5 minutes about whatever topic he wants to talk about. And then that publishes on YouTube and all his socials every Monday. I record him whenever he has some kind of a live event. I'm going to film it, and that gives me content to cut up into clips. I call those in-action clips. Those go out Thursday. Trying different things like little quote cards, some simple stuff that we can just make with Canva that I can push out on Saturdays, let's say, every week. So trying to get him consistent content 3 days a week, with the only goal of being consistent, pushing stuff out there. We're not trying to get clients from it. I'm not trying to change the world with them, and he understands that. I'm just trying to figure out a way to give him some consistent content where each series is different from the other, as a way for me to really feel like what it's going to take to build a template, to be able to produce this kind of content, to be able to manage the promotion of it, how to work all the different socials. I'm doing his Facebook and Instagram. He has TikTok, but I'm leaving that to him. And I'm doing his YouTube channel. And this gives me an opportunity to really get my feet on the ground, and hopes that, A, I get the experience needed to actually garner payment for this level of service, and how long and what I should charge, and obviously then hire someone, and that's another story, as I'm trying to hire local or just have someone that's currently on my team to take over. But when I get that paid client that wants all the same things as Chris Camp, which also includes a podcast, and we're going to be doing a podcast together too, or I'm going to be doing one for him. But for me, in order to be able to feel confident in charging someone a good amount of money for all of that service, I want to make sure I have some experience, and then know what I need to pay my team member to do whatever it is I need that person to do, and then ultimately know what to charge. So that's the journey that I'm in right now, and it's working. It's going well, but it's top of mind because we just had our second recording session yesterday as I record this, and it's our second one. So the first one recorded 4 topics, straight shot, looking directly in the camera. It's one camera angle, trying to get it all in one take, so there's no editing. But which went well. It was nerve-wracking for him because it's the first time he did something like that in the studio. He's been doing videos for a while now, just on his phone in his back lawn or out at his farm or whatever. But now it's a little different. But I wasn't happy with the lighting, but I jumped in and just did it. And now that I've been pushing that content out and really looking at it, I'm like, ugh, all right, that's the first round. Okay. I just played guitar sitting down. I'm finally learning my chords, but I have to sit down to play. And the goal is to, like, one day a month, get together in the studio and record all the content that we need for the next 4 weeks. And that ties into, managing the time and effort accordingly, so it doesn't feel like we're spending so much time on it. It's just a more efficient way to work. So it was what it was. So we wrapped back up or connected again yesterday. By this time, my lighting got better. I figured out how to use it better. I was starting to I have been making reels on my phone with my blue backlighting, or I even tried green, but I was like, wow, this looks so much better. I have good front lighting on my desk. I have 2 light panels, LED light panels that I've been using forever to, light me up for Zoom calls or whatever I might be doing. So I learned, oh, okay, I've made the step up. My room looks better. So when Chris Camp comes back in, maybe we can go from sitting down and playing the new chords I learned to trying to stand up a little bit and play the same thing. And that's what he did. And I had some ideas yesterday that I tried. I had to figure out a different camera angle. I ended up having him stand in front of my desk, so the webcam is what recorded him. That way he had that great front lighting. And so then it looked okay, but then I wanted to tweak the lighting in the background more, and by this point, all I had was the LEDs that are kind of mounted on my ceiling now, multicolored little panels, floodlight panels. So I knew I could kind of make it like a blue wash up against the wall, but I had nothing coming up from the floor. So I grabbed 2 other panels, put them on the floor, directing them up towards the wall to get that vibe too. And I spent 30 minutes before he got it there. I tried to do all this before he showed up, testing the lights. Like, do I go blue flooding from the top and a soft white or yellow coming from the bottom, or vice versa? And it just took me a while to figure out what I think looks okay, and I know it's not right, but it is what it is. I'm trying it, and I learned a lot because of it. And I think I went with blue flooding from the top with some white coming up from the bottom. I think that's what I felt like looked the best. Definitely a missing component in that backdrop, if you will, is something on the wall to just add some design. But they definitely had the depth between Chris and the back wall. And then I have my podcast table in between. So that gives that middle ground, foreground, middle ground, background. Or someone tried to explain, like, you want that 3 layers. So I had that. So it looked pretty good. He popped, and I actually, to make the table look like a podcast table, I just put up 2 tabletop mic stands and clipped on 2 microphones that weren't even plugged in, just to have the look. So someone clearly sees that behind him and it's like, oh, that's a podcast setup right there. And he comes in, and then we really dial in kind of where he needs to stand and the camera angle, and visually we're like, okay, I think I'm happy with this. But now we got to record his audio. And this is where I'm so glad I'm getting to do these things, because this is where it turned into trial by fire, like having to figure something out immediately because it's not going to work out like you planned. The first option was using the Rodecaster brand wireless lapels. They're called Road Goes, a Road Go 2 or whatever. And I use these for the Real Hernando podcast, and they're amazing. They record locally, so I take them on these interviews I do remotely. So I interview the owners typically in their establishment. You just clip them on, done deal, hit record on each, hit record on the camera, clap, so you can sync everything in later, and it just sounds really good. But they're kind of gaudy looking. They're probably like 1 inch squared. So they're a little clunky. For the Real Hernando, they can kind of be hidden. The lighting we use for that podcast is whatever natural lighting we're sitting in. The camera's a little further away in order to get both of us fitting in the frame. Sometimes I want the camera further away so we can catch more background because there might be their business logo behind us. So the lapels are hidden. It's not as noticeable. Well, yesterday, that bright front lighting, everything really looking sharp, that lapel looked like an albatross. It just looked like, okay, this is a little clunky and gaudy. All right, well, now what do I do? Well, I have a lapel, a standard clip-on lapel that goes to a Lightning USB for like an iPhone. And I got that, and I've had that for a while because going back to the Real Hernando podcast, sometimes I'm interviewing two people. So what I've always done is they each get a wireless lapel, and then I go with a little standard lapel and plug it into my phone. That way they have the better quality audio. I've never had to do more than 3 total, but that's why I had that lapel. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's wire you with this regular lapel. The cord is long enough where I can kind of roll my AV table near us, so it's out of the picture, but it will be able to reach the table. And I'll have my phone on there, so I can see that it's recording okay, and we're good to go. So I grab my phone, and it's at like 10%. I'm like, damn it. So I'm like, all right, my iPad. Thinking just now, I'm like, I'm not in a panic, but if this guy was paying me for this service, I would be in a total panic. But because this is pro bono and we're just trying to help each other out, it's giving me the opportunity to fail. I had learned so much already now because I was like, okay, well, I can't rely on my phone, or I got to make sure it's charged, or I got to think of some other way. But right now, it is what it is. My phone is not an option. Let's grab my iPad. Grab my iPad, 2%. But then I'm like, well, it wouldn't work anyway because that's a USB-C. And at the moment, I didn't have, or I still don't really have, a lavalier that goes into a USB-C port. So now what? So I have to use Chris's phone. Luckily, he has an iPhone. So I was able to tap his lapel into his phone, which isn't ideal because then now I'm going to have to move that file from his phone to mine. But we got it figured out. And that was when we were finally able to dial it in. So we went through and he recorded his 4 little steps, and I hit record on the camera on my desk, my webcam, which goes into OBS. Hit record there, hit record on the phone, clapped, rock and roll. 20 minutes later, after we've recorded 4 videos, 4 clips, all one take each, and we ended up using them all as is. That's kind of how Chris is. He can come up with a topic and riff well for 4 minutes on anything. Well, now we want to watch it just to review. So I'm like, well, rather than taking the time to sync the audio to the video, let's just watch the OBS video because, the webcam caught the audio, right? That's not the ideal audio we want to use, but the webcam was capturing that, right? No, it didn't, because I didn't set it up I didn't set OBS as the, as audio input coming from the cam engine is what my webcam is called. it was still attached to my Rodecaster, which was off. So no audio was being captured for OBS through the webcam. So the only audio we had was what was on the phone. So I had to be like, well, let's just listen to it. So we then listened to it on his phone. What I should have done is texted that audio file from his voice memo app to my phone. So then I could have played the audio on my phone through the Rodecaster, turn it on, turn on my speaker monitors, and listen to it in better quality. And then I realized it was so easy to sync. So I could have spent 2 minutes to sync the audio to the video, and then we could have watched and heard the video, full screen, good audio through my monitors. But instead, I panicked, and I just felt like I needed to figure something out immediately and just roll with it. So we went from reviewing it with the right video along with the right audio to only listening to it through Chris's phone through those little phone speakers. But hey, I'm able to tell the story and talk about these mistakes because I did it. I didn't know I was missing these parts. I learned so much, so that way I know next time I know how better to set things up. We listened through everything. Everything was good. He liked all his takes. And I filed everything in Dropbox. I get everything I need to do. And then this week I'm going to start chopping things up and moving forward with how to push everything out. What I'm going to do, some of my fixes, is prior to this, I had already contacted my engineer to get on a Zoom call with me and redial in the second Rodecaster I have along with my laptop. Because way back when I bought the second Rodecaster, I worked with him and we got everything set up. We got all the settings taken care of in Rodecaster. I got Reaper on my laptop and then got all the settings together so they're communicating well. So it's multi-track within the Rodecaster, but also exports in multi-track on Reaper in real time so I can record both. So I have a backup, but they're being recorded accordingly. Like Reaper's getting inputted into multi-track. Well, it's been a year or so since, we did that because I never used that setup. Because when I really started ramping up the Real Hernando podcast, I realized I had to trim things down, make it more streamlined, make it more easy. And that's when I went with the wireless Rodecaster lapels. So now I'm going to get that dialed in, and I have better lapels that go from the lapel to an XLR male. So then I can just plug that in right directly into the Rodecaster like it's an SM7B or 57 or 58, higher quality. So the next time I work with Chris, that lapel is going to go into the Rodecaster, which will then also be backed up in Reaper. So bam, now audio situation much better. And then the video aspect, I'm still unhappy with that because we use the webcam, so it's not as high def. But the reason why I went with the webcam is because it's already set up in between my two nice light panels, which really made him look good on the front, and then pretending I know how to backlight something. So I want to figure out some better backlighting, another position to put him in, which will still give him a good, nice looking background, but then I can use a better camera for it. That way, it will, we're going to go from, okay, now we're playing chords standing up to maybe, instead of playing to the music, let's say now you're playing on your own and trying to play through the whole song without having the actual music behind you to keep you on time. That's that next step. But if my buddy Stacy Dodd, who was supposed to be my first paid client, actually comes through and comes in Monday, well, man, how much better off am I now because of what I did with Chris as he walks in? And if Stacy would have been on time, or like actually gone with the original scheduled time to come record, it would have been Friday, the day before doing all of this with Chris. So I would have been dealing with all these issues and just kind of being clunky and stumbling my way through the process with Stacy, who's paying me. So I'm kind of glad he canceled. I'm glad he needed to reschedule. Because now when he finally comes back in, or when he comes in, I'm better because of the trial by fire, jumping in and just trying to create content for Chris and learning my studio, learning my gear. And now Stacy's video will be that much better on Monday. And I can't wait. I mentioned this to Chris. I can't wait for like a year from now that we go back and listen and watch this old content as individuals. He's going to be like, man, I'm such a better speaker now. I'm so much better in front of a camera now. And I'm going to be like, man, and you look so much better now, and you sound so much better now on a technical front. And hopefully we laugh and laugh and laugh, and we're still working together for many years to go. So, look, man, I just realized it's 30 minutes. So, lots to talk about. And once I get rolling, you can't shut me up. And this was fun in my new studio. Well, not my new studio. The corner of my bedroom is where I'm at right now. But it's fun. I think it sounds pretty good in my headphones. Hopefully this translates well through your earbuds or your car speakers. You know, hit me up on Instagram at Shelby Productions LLC. I'd love to hear from you. ShelbyProductions.com, and check out my Patreon page. Click the link down in the description. And if you want to help support, that's the best way you can. Till next time, y'all. Talk to you later.